The night my boss promised me a promotion, he held my hand across his mahogany desk and swore I deserved the world. I believed him. I believed the late meetings, the whispered plans, the stolen hotel nights meant something more than weakness. But exactly 1 week later, at 6:12 a.m., someone knocked on my apartment door. When I opened it, his wife stood there, perfect, composed, holding a thin leather folder. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She simply said, "We need to talk about your future." And in that moment, I realized I was not the only one being used. I used to believe hard work was enough. For 3 years, I was the first to arrive at the office and the last to leave. I knew every client file, every contract clause, every weakness in our competitors' proposals. When deals closed, my boss, Daniel Harper, stood in front of the board and took the applause. I stood behind him, smiling politely, invisible. He was the CEO. Charismatic. Married. Untouchable. And I was his senior project manager, the woman who fixed everything quietly. The first time he looked at me differently was after a brutal negotiation with a foreign investor. The boardroom had been tense, voices raised, threats implied. I had stepped in, restructured the proposal on the spot, and saved the contract. Afterward, the board members filtered out, murmuring praise to Daniel. But he didn't follow them. He stayed behind. "You saved us today," he said, loosening his tie. "You deserve more than this position." I laughed nervously. "I deserve sleep." His gaze lingered too long. "No," he said softly. "You deserve the executive seat." My heart pounded. Executive seat meant power, respect, a future. And then he closed the door. That was the first boundary that disappeared. The affair didn't start with passion. It started with vulnerability. Late nights turned into shared dinners. Shared dinners turned into confessions. He told me his wife, Victoria, didn't understand him. That their marriage was strategic, not romantic. That she cared more about social galas than his dreams. "I built this company from nothing," he told me one night in his office, city lights glowing behind him. "And she treats it like her inheritance." I listened. I sympathized. I let myself believe I was different. The first time he kissed me, it was slow, almost hesitant. "I'll take care of you," he whispered against my lips. And I believed him. Our relationship became a secret rhythm. Private hotel rooms booked under assistant names. Weekend business trips. Encrypted messages that disappeared within seconds. At work, he remained distant, professional. But under the conference table, his hand would brush mine. Every touch felt like a promise. Then came the night everything shifted. We were in his office again. Rain hammered against the windows. He poured me a glass of wine from the bottle he kept hidden behind financial reports. "The board is restructuring leadership next quarter," he said. I froze. "Restructuring?" He stepped closer. "I'm promoting you to vice president of operations." My breath caught. "Daniel, you've earned it. And once it's official, no one will question your authority." His fingers tilted my chin upward. "You'll be untouchable." Untouchable. The word wrapped around my ambition like silk. I should have asked why the board hadn't mentioned it. I should have questioned why it depended on him alone. Instead, I let him kiss me again. A week later, subtle cracks began to form. He stopped replying as quickly. Meetings were rescheduled. He canceled a weekend trip, claiming family obligations. At the office, rumors started whispering through the cubicles. Board audit. Financial review. Internal investigation. When I asked him directly, he smiled too easily. "Routine procedure," he assured me. "Don't worry." But his hand trembled when he reached for mine. That was when fear first touched me. The knock came at 6:12 a.m. on a Monday. I remember the exact time because I had barely slept. I opened the door in pajamas, hair messy, mind foggy. Victoria Harper stood in front of me. She was stunning, tall, elegant, perfectly dressed in a cream blazer. No smudged mascara. No shaking hands. Just control. In her hand was a thin leather folder. "Good morning," she said calmly. I couldn't speak. She looked me up and down, not cruelly. Clinically. "May I come in?" My apartment suddenly felt small, exposed. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," I stammered. "Oh," she said softly. "There hasn't." She stepped inside without waiting for permission. My stomach dropped. She placed the leather folder on my kitchen table and opened it slowly. Inside were printed photographs. Hotel entrances. Elevator CCTV stills. A screenshot of a message from Daniel, "You deserve that promotion." And more. My blood ran cold. "How? I hired a private investigator 3 months ago," she said smoothly. When I noticed the late meetings. 3 months. That meant she had known before he promised me the promotion. Before he said I was different. Before he said I was untouchable. He told you he'd promote you, she continued, almost gently. Didn't he? I felt my throat tighten. Victoria's lips curved not in anger, but in something sharper. Daniel does this when he feels threatened. He attaches himself to talented women and makes promises. She leaned closer. You're not the first. The words sliced through me. You're lying, I whispered. Am I? She slid another document toward me. It was a draft complaint to the board. Allegations of misconduct. Abuse of authority. Ethical violations. And my name was highlighted. I'm filing this today, she said. But here's the interesting part. She met my eyes directly. I won't mention coercion. My pulse pounded. I'll state it was consensual. That you knowingly engaged in a relationship with a married CEO for personal gain. The room spun. You can't, I can, she replied calmly. And I will. Unless you attend the board meeting this Friday and tell the truth. My voice cracked. The truth about what? She stood, smoothing her blazer. That Daniel promised you a promotion in exchange for your loyalty. That he manipulated your ambition. That he compromised company policy. I stared at her. You want me to destroy him? She tilted her head. No, she said quietly. I want you to decide whether you're a victim or his accomplice. And then she walked to the door. Before leaving, she paused. One more thing, she added. The promotion? It was never approved. The door clicked shut behind her. I collapsed into a chair, staring at the photographs. Untouchable. That's what he called me. But now I understood. I had never been untouchable. I had been disposable. And Friday was coming. Friday arrived like a courtroom summons. The office buzzed with tension. Board members in tailored suits moved through the hallways. Legal representatives carried folders thick with liability. Even the air felt sharp. Daniel stood near the conference room entrance, confident as ever. Navy suit. Silver tie. The image of a man in control. When he saw me, he smiled. That smile used to weaken me. Now it made me sick. There you are, he said smoothly, guiding me aside. I've handled everything. The audit is minor. Don't look so nervous. I searched his face for guilt. For fear. I found neither. Victoria came to see me, I said quietly. His jaw tightened for a fraction of a second. Don't listen to her. She's dramatic. She has evidence. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. Everyone has something to lose. You especially. The implication hung heavy. If you speak against me, he continued softly, the board won't see a victim. They'll see an ambitious employee who slept her way up. There it was. The truth. Not whispered in a hotel room. Not wrapped in promises. Cold. Calculated. I felt something inside me shift. You promised me that promotion, I said. He shrugged faintly. I considered it. Considered. 3 years of loyalty. 6 months of manipulation. Reduced to a consideration. The boardroom doors opened. Mr. Harper, the chairman called. We're ready. Daniel straightened his jacket. Remember, he murmured to me, I'm the one who signs your paychecks. Then he walked in first. The boardroom was packed. Victoria sat at the far end of the polished table, composed, unreadable. Beside her sat a corporate attorney. I took a seat against the wall. Daniel began confidently. Thank you all for gathering on short notice, he said. As you know, my wife has raised personal allegations intended to damage both me and this company. Personal allegations. He didn't even glance at me. Victoria stood gracefully. With respect, she said, this is not personal. It is structural misconduct. She nodded toward the attorney, who distributed copies of printed emails and photographs. A ripple moved through the room. Daniel remained calm. Yes, he admitted smoothly. I had a consensual relationship with an employee. That was a lapse in judgment. But it did not affect corporate decisions. My hands trembled. Consensual. Lapse. The chairman turned toward me. Ms. Carter, he said carefully, you were named in this report. Would you like to respond? Every eye in the room landed on me. This was the moment. Mini-seconds stretched into eternity. I stood. My voice almost failed me, but then I saw Victoria watching. Not cruelly. Steadily. He promised me a promotion, I said. Daniel laughed lightly. We discussed potential growth. No, I interrupted. The interruption shocked even me. You told me the vice president position was mine. You said the board was restructuring. You said I'd be untouchable. A murmur filled the room. Daniel's smile faded. You're emotional, he said quietly. I have text messages, I replied. Silence. I reached into my bag and placed printed screenshots on the table. The room filled with the sound of paper sliding across polished wood. One message stood out in bold: "Be loyal to me, and the executive seat is yours." The chairman adjusted his glasses. "Mr. Harper?" Daniel's composure cracked. These were private conversations taken out of context. Out of context? Victoria asked calmly. She stood and pressed a button on a small remote. The conference room screen flickered to life. Hotel CCTV footage. Timestamps. Elevator entries matching corporate travel reimbursements. Daniel's face drained of color. "You hired investigators on company time?" a board member demanded. Victoria's voice remained cool. "No. I used my personal funds. However, I also reviewed expense reports." She clicked again. A spreadsheet appeared, hotel stays categorized as client development. The room erupted. "This is an ethics violation. Abuse of authority. Financial misconduct." Daniel slammed his palm against the table. "This is a witch hunt." But his voice lacked authority now. The chairman raised his hand. "Enough." He turned to me. "Ms. Carter, were you aware that these hotel visits were billed to corporate accounts?" My stomach dropped. "No," I whispered. And it was true. Daniel had always handled the bookings. The chairman nodded slowly. "That distinction matters." Daniel looked at me then, not with love, not with desire. With betrayal. "You're throwing me under the bus," he hissed. "No," I said steadily. "You drove it." Silence. The chairman conferred quietly with other board members. After several tense minutes, he spoke. "Mr. Harper, effective immediately, you are suspended pending full investigation. Access to company accounts and systems is revoked." The words echoed like thunder. Daniel stood abruptly. "You can't do this. I built this company." "And you endangered it," the chairman replied. Security entered. Actual security. Employees outside the glass walls watched as Daniel Harper, untouchable CEO, was escorted out. Publicly. Humiliated. For the first time, he looked small. The meeting adjourned. I remained seated, shaking. Victoria approached me slowly. "It wasn't easy," she said. "You knew about the expenses," I realized. She nodded. "That's what ended it for me. Betrayal of marriage is personal. Betrayal of fiduciary duty is strategic." I almost laughed at the precision of her logic. "Why didn't you destroy me?" I asked. She studied me for a long moment. "Because I was once the ambitious woman in a room full of powerful men," she said quietly. "And I know what manipulation looks like." Emotion rose unexpectedly in my throat. "I'm not your enemy," she added. "But you need to decide who you want to be now." 3 weeks later, the investigation concluded. Daniel resigned in exchange for avoiding criminal charges related to financial misuse. His reputation collapsed overnight. Headlines replaced admiration with scandal. As for me, I expected termination. Instead, the chairman called me into his office. "You demonstrated transparency under pressure," he said. "That matters." He slid a document across the desk. "Vice President of Operations. Approved unanimously. This time, signed by the board. No whispers. No closed doors. Just earned authority." That evening, I sat alone in my office, staring at the city lights. A knock sounded gently. It was Ethan Morales, the company's compliance director. Quiet. Steady. The one who had always warned about blurred boundaries. "I'm glad you stayed," he said. "I almost didn't." He hesitated, then added, "You deserved better than how he treated you. No manipulation. No promises. Just sincerity." For the first time in months, I felt something warm instead of burning. "I have a lot to rebuild," I admitted. "You won't be doing it alone," he replied softly. Outside the glass walls, employees moved with renewed energy. The company felt cleaner. Lighter. Daniel had called me untouchable. He was wrong. I wasn't untouchable. I was resilient. And this time, the power was mine earned, not given. As Ethan stood beside me, not too close, not claiming anything, I realized something unexpected. The promotion was never the real victory. The truth was. And for once, my future wasn't built on secrets. It was built on strength.